Inter Milan were not supposed to be here. They weren't supposed to be a top 2 team in Europe. They weren't supposed to be a team gaining so much momentum, with players of the caliber of a 37-year-old Armenian, a 36-year-old goalie who was brought in by Bayern as a desperate alternative just 2 years ago, or a 37-year-old defender whose first Champions League goal came in the most memorable match of his career, and definitely not a team that nobody would want to face on the European stage. Just a few years ago, this team looked broken. Before the 2020-21 season, Inter Milan hadn't won a single major trophy for over a decade. No Serie A, no Champions League. Realistically, their last successful campaign was under Jose Mourinho in 2010 when they won the European treble. For the next 11 years, they won nothing. Yes, they secured the Coppa Italia in 2011, but does that really matter? Inter Milan were in the mud. Everyone was talking about rebuilding the team. Every passionate Interista was losing hope of seeing Inter Milan rise again anytime soon. For some, a decade is not that long. But for the Nerazzurri, who had become accustomed to winning something every season, 10 years was a long time. I mean, what could we expect from a team that won 5 consecutive Scudetti between 2006 and 2010? But then, in the time window between 2018 and 2021, came one influential football boss, a relatively experienced manager, and a couple of hard-working players who were united under a common objective: make Inter Milan great again. And it all started with one man, Giuseppe Marotta, or just Beppe Marotta. When he arrived at Inter Milan in 2018, fans felt hope for the first time in years. This wasn't just any executive. He was the architect behind Juventus' resurrection. Between 2010 and 2018, he transformed one of Inter's biggest rivals from a fallen giant into a ruthless machine. Under his leadership, they won 7 consecutive Serie A titles, built a rock-solid core with the likes of Buffon, Chiellini, Bazzagli, Bonucci, and Marchisio, and scouted elite talents like Pogba, whose transfer for the respectable €0 million is still beyond imagination, as well as Dybala, Tevez, and Pirlo. Put simply, Juve were by far the best team in Italy and the top 3 in Europe. Yes, Juve have been incredibly unlucky throughout the years to lose a staggering 7 Champions League finals, but the peak of bad luck, that came in 2015 and 2017, when they faced literally Barcelona and Real Madrid's best teams in the last 2 decades. Of course, that is subjective, but Luis Enrique's and Zinedine Zidane's teams, they were simply unbeatable, which was the only reason Marotta did not come away with at least 1 Champions League trophy as Juventus CEO. Still, Juventus were winning big, but not everything was plain sailing. In 2018, they made a blockbuster move when Cristiano Ronaldo arrived for €100 million. Marotta wasn't convinced. He believed in building squads rather than banking everything on one superstar. As glamorous as that signing was, it clashed with his footballing philosophy. Shortly after, in October 2018 to be precise, he left. Although it wasn't officially framed as a conflict, the writing was on the wall. So, when Inter Milan brought him in 2 months later, they weren't just hiring a director, they were bringing in a football visionary. He got to work almost immediately. Marotta backed Antonio Conte, a coach who is as demanding as they come. He signed Romelu Lukaku, Nicolo Barella, Achraf Hakimi, and Christian Eriksen. These were smart deals that were not only incredibly valuable, but also impressive. At certain stages in their careers, all 4 of those players have been among the top 3 in their respective positions, if not the best. He built a balanced team, but it needed time to gel. 2 years later, Inter won their first Scudetto in 11 years, securing the 2020-21 Serie A title under Conte. Shortly after this triumph, Conte left and was replaced by Simone Inzaghi. At the time, the Nerazzurri feared that Inter would collapse again. Overall, the situation was a bit strange because Conte had just won the league but out of nowhere chose to leave. Inzaghi, on the other hand, had been coaching Lazio for the previous 5 years, but he wasn't an elite coach. Yes, he'd done a solid job in the capital, winning the Coppa Italia and 2 Supercoppa titles, but nobody could have predicted just how effective his football would become. Not only that, but also how he would become a legend just 4 years later. Inzaghi adopted Conte's structure, but allowed more freedom. While Conte was rigid, Inzaghi was expressive. He kept the back three, but introduced fluidity. The wing-backs were completely free to move forward, but also to track back and support the defense. Midfielders weren't just workhorses, they became playmakers, pressers, and goal threats. Overall, every player in the team, they had the ability to play in at least 3 different positions. Want an immediate example? Just look at Acerbi's finish against Barcelona. How would you expect someone with his profile to finish an attack with one of the world's biggest defenders, Ronald Araujo, on his back, in the roof of the net in the 94th minute of a Champions League semi-final? This is Inzaghi's brand of football. His system was bold and, yes, risky at times, but exhilarating to watch. It took time, but eventually it paid off. Then came the evolution of the squad. Nicolo Barella became one of the most complete midfielders in Europe. Relentless, technical, and tactically brilliant. Lautaro Martinez matured into a lethal number 9 and a leader. Federico Di Marco, a boyhood Interista, became one of Europe's best attacking fullbacks. Marcus Thuram signed as a free agent from Germany, became the perfect partner for Lautaro, and could easily be considered one of Morata's best transfers. During his time at the Giuseppe Meazza, Alessandro Bastoni is literally one of the best centre-backs in the world right now. He is the modern Italian defender, press-resistant and left-footed, which makes him even more unique. But that's not all. Dumfries, Çalhanoğlu, Mkhitaryan all raised their game after joining Inter. Just take the Turk, for example. During his time at AC Milan, and at Hamburg before that, he was always viewed as an attacking midfielder, operating in the space between the midline and the striker. However, with Inzaghi's arrival, Çalhanoğlu started playing deeper, which completely changed his fortunes as a midfield maestro. Interestingly enough, even though he played as a deep-lying playmaker instead of an attacking midfielder, he's actually scored more goals. Statistically, his best season with AC Milan was 2019-20, when he scored 11 goals. For comparison, last season he scored 15 goals for Inter, while this campaign he currently sits on 11, with 2 games still to play. So, Hakan's case really exemplifies Simone Inzaghi as a manager. Not only is he one of the best tacticians in Europe right now, he also has the ability to make every player outperform their own potential. And slowly but surely, the results came. In his first season, the 2021-22 campaign, Inter won the Coppa Italia. Then, in 2023, they made it all the way to the Champions League final, narrowly losing to Manchester City in a hard-fought tactical battle. Many thought that would be their peak, and there were reasons for such takes. The majority of the squad were aging. Romelu Lukaku and Edin Dzeko weren't the same attacking force as in the past, and the backline consisting of Acerbi and Damian, both of whom started in the final, didn't scream longevity. After their disappointing loss in the final, they made the necessary acquisitions. Versatile centre-backs Jan Bissek and Benjamin Pavard, as well as Marcus Thuram, arrived, and all 3 turned into key figures for the team. Then, in 2023-24, another Serie A title, killing all kind of competition, not even halfway through April. Yes, Inter won the title with an astonishing 19-point lead over second-place AC Milan. But the old story was on the agenda again. This squad is aging. They can't keep winning unless they change something, the fans said. And as unbelievable as it may seem, I still can't believe how they pulled it off actually, Inter Milan will play in another Champions League final and have the chance to win another Serie A title, even though it isn't fully in their control. Just a couple of weeks ago, they were fighting for the treble. Yes, they lost to Milan in the Coppa Italia semi-finals and to Bologna and Roma in the space of 10 days. But even this slump, it didn't stop them from preventing this Barcelona super team. Through organised play, unbeatable discipline, and incredible unity, Inter have done it. And now, unlike 2 years ago, they have a far more inexperienced side in front of them to play in the final. 2 years ago, it was clear that the Champions League was just a matter of time for a star-studded Man City team with players such as De Bruyne and Erling Haaland. Having lost one final in 2021, they entered the game 2 years later with wisdom and maturity. And you know what's interesting? Inter Milan are this team right now. In an absolute repeat of events, they are in exactly the same situation as Man City were 2 years ago. Having lost a final, they're playing another one 2 years later. They're up against a side that has no experience of playing in such a high-stakes match. Realistically, of the PSG team that lost the final to Bayern in 2020, only Marquinhos remains. The rest of the squad, they've changed completely. So, Inter Milan might actually achieve the impossible. After suffering for so long, for a whole decade, they won nothing. Then, they started winning, but were still suffering. The 2023 Champions League final, that left a deep mark on the fans. Even this season, the matches against Bayern Munich, and especially Barcelona, were tough for them. But right now, with their style of play and cohesion, I can see them lifting the trophy, even though they might be the underdogs. So, what's your take? Can Inter really achieve what seemed impossible just a couple of seasons ago, and finally win their 4th Champions League title after a 15-year wait? Or will the silky, technical PSG side crush them at the Allianz Arena on the 31st of May? Share with us in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe, or if you want to learn more about Anthony and how he ghosted Man United, click on the video you see on your screen right now.